Okay, so today the purpose of this stream is to break some of these first page nerves that we have. I'm just going to hang on a minute for some people to join. Just bear with me, but I will just get started at some point. So I've got my setup here. I'm just going to spin the camera around so you can see who I am. So I'm Carl. I'm currently in a sling, one-armed. So, bear with me. It's a little bit tricky. I've just had a shoulder operation no, not that side. Working back to front. Yeah, on this side, yes. So it's a little bit difficult. But I haven't done this for a while, so I thought it's about time I did some live broadcasting. Thanks for joining, Annie. I don't think we've just met unless we chat on a different name, but feel free to ask any questions. So, the plan today is I wanted to just discuss. I wanted to discuss this idea of having nerves with a blank page. So, this is it's not a new sketchbook actually. This now I bought it a few months ago, and because I have quite a few different ones on the go, I haven't got round to doing this. And do read a lot about this scary big space, first page nerves, and it's not always at the beginning of a new sketchbook. It can be obviously on a new blank page, just having something to put on these pages. The added thing with this is, of course, it's A4, and I'm normally in this sort of size. So what I was going to do is just show you some of the ways I've started some of these sketchbooks. Like, so I've got 4 here. I was just going to go through them. Just the first page. So this is now full. So this one, I was out and I just took the plunge while I was out plein air drawing to do a nice, nice pen and ink sketch. So I was sort of out ready to use that, and I had an intention of filling this up with a lot of black and white stuff for Inktober. That was the sort of main purpose of it. And so there wasn't really much dilemma about getting started in this one, because it was there. It was the perfect opportunity to get this little cafe scene on there. So that can happen to you. This one, which is the Secura, and all these can be seen on my Substack. All available. Don't think they're behind any paywalls. If you go to my contents page, you'll see them, sketchbook reviews. So this one, I didn't start on this page, and I went all guns blazing on this first spread, and realised that it wasn't very good at holding water because it was only a sort of a notebook. You can see how thin the pages are. And so I did sort of put a lot of water and paint down, and I did have this topic in mind as well, but I thought I would go messy because I do quite like doing that. So but that sort of backfired because the paper is not watercolor paper, um, and that's sort of been the case all the way through this one, this Sakura. It's more for light sketches. Um, so that's that one. And then we got to this one. This is another one this is not actually finished yet. So this is where I started just getting over this first page. I haven't got anything to plan to sketch in this one. So on this one, I just thought I'd splash some colour down. I was um, just looking at some colour theory and just decided to get some watercolour on the paper, uh, partly to see how the paper behaves, but also then just put a title of my Substack on there. And that's quite a good idea. I didn't sort of have anything planned for this. It just sort of happened organically. And I was quite pleased with the paper. You know, these little C. White of Brighton sketchbooks, I sort of know these, and so that worked quite well. And then I also did this on this newer one, which is an A5. This is the Fabriano. I'm currently using this and that other one, um, and this is only 160 gram. And again, it's not really watercolor paper. I didn't class that as the first page. And I did the same thing. I just started. I think this was some ink tents pencils that I had. And I just put some stripes on, and then decided to write again my Substack on it. Um, and that sort of helps get over the blank page with these. And that's quite a good theme. Just putting something down, and you can see this is the one that I, I'm currently in. Um, I'm sort of up to here on this one. So I'm now switching, and so this is quite a big jump, I think, for me, because let's just move these out of the way with my one hand, because it's now going from these smaller sizes, and I want to get this A4. I want to start doing something larger. I have done used A4. I I I started off using these C. White sketchbooks, where they're wire bound and you can rip pages out. This one I ended up ripping quite a lot of pages out. Some of the pictures are in frames. And if you do rip them out, you don't tend to have that like first page nerves because you can just tear these out. I did frame some of these in here, and that's why it's quite thin. So I have done A4, but I haven't done A4 for some time now. And so this is where I want to sort of christen this Hanamiel. This is a Hanamiel Nostalgia sketchbook, and you can see it's lovely. It's got a nice cover. Hi, Katrina. If there's any comments, please leave them on there. I'm having to stand up because I can't find my stream online and watch it by sitting down. So if I do miss some comments, it'd be interesting if somebody typed something. If somebody can type something, even just to say hi, that would be really good because I can then see that the interactions are working. So if Annie or Katrina could do that, that would be great. Anyone can do that. Ah, yes, thank you. Hello. Hello, Annie. Thank you very much for doing that. So yeah, I've had problems with this before because I don't always use the phone. Sometimes I will broadcast and use some software on my Mac, um, but I can't find the stream. No, I thought it would show up on my dashboard, but it doesn't. Right, so onwards. So this is the great big first page, which I'm not actually going to class this one because I want to do a sort of an A3 spread with this. So I'm going to go full guns blazing on this basically, and rather than sort of put something nice and put my Substack name on there, which I could do, splash some color on there and just write it out. That way I've got the book being used. I'm actually going to try and do something. Now, up until yesterday, I didn't really have anything planned. Right, I'm going to sit down. Occasionally, I'm going to stand up if there's to just check, see if anyone's made any comments or asked any questions. Okay, so up until yesterday, I didn't really have anything planned for this. I was thinking about make sure this is in shot. It's not, is it? So I've got these are Rosa. This is the Rosa gallery tin. I've just changed it ever so slightly from the standard. Um, so I didn't have anything planned till yesterday, but yesterday I was out sketching in Falmouth. Hi, Bree. I was out sketching in Falmouth. I just sort of done an introduction, Bree, and discussed some of the ways you can start the sketchbook. I showed some of my other sketchbooks, which I'll perhaps cover again at the end, or you can watch it on replay. It'll be available in the area. So yeah, I'm going to use these Rosa Gallery. I've sort of mixed up this palette a little bit because I've put a turquoise in here, and I think this is a Naples rose that isn't standard. I thought I'd messed up the page already then. So yeah, big A3 spread, and I've been wanting to get back into this A4 format, and sort of this paper is so nice and hot press and smooth. It's really just, oh, I can't believe it. Look, it's really just, what the heck was that? That was some gouache that I picked up from my, anyway, right, there you go. That's how precious you can get about a first page. It's horrible. So because this is an A3 hot press, it's so nice, you don't feel you don't want to spoil it. But we're going to bite the bullet, and I'm going to use a method that thinking a little bit about composition. But I found this little cute food shack yesterday while I was out sketching in Falmouth. It was called Kelp Canteen, and they sort of a fish place. They were on the quay in Falmouth, and I took a picture. I liked the colour of it. It was like a periwinkle blue. So my go-to colours, if I wanted to just put some colour on here and not actually have a subject to paint, would be ultramarine and burnt sienna. And then obviously together those colours. Let me just put that aside. Those colours make a grey. Let me just show you that. So ultramarine. Get a bigger brush. So these are Fumi brushes. I think they're sort of a squirrel hair. So I'll just wet down spritz that. So ultramarine. These Rosa paints are lovely and creamy. I know Bree bought these as well. Um, I've got two jars of water. I don't always use. There's the burnt sienna. you put them two together and get the quantities right, and all of a sudden you've got a grey, as you can see. You can cool it down a bit with a bit more blue. We can warm it up a bit and get the balance right. Sometimes if you add a little bit of any sort of red, you can just sort of change the hair in there as well. So I will be putting some grey on, and it's a sort of a neutral that I'm looking for. But what I found, I wanted to sort of make this periwinkle type blue, which is a mixture of ultramarine and a violet. I do have a violet, and I don't know which one it is. It's actually called violet. This is the swatch. So I'm going to make a sort of a blue, but I was trying this earlier on, so I was doing some swatches with this. I found I ended up having to add a bit of white because it wasn't giving me the colour that I wanted. So let's get some, because I'm going to need quite a lot of grey. Violet, that's what I was looking for. That's too much violet, that's gone too much one way. I've sort of got equal amounts there. I'll leave that in that palette there, and then I'm gonna some white. Now this is just some really nasty cheap Chinese white by a brand I don't even know what it is. Bridgman and Green. I think it was a kid set, possibly. But see, this is a little bit too lilac colour. But the colour I'm after is more of a sort of a baby blue stroke periwinkle. But when I put some white in this, what it does, I'm not going to use gouache because I don't want it really opaque. You can see this changing ever so slightly, and then if I water this down a little bit over here, so I definitely want that colour on, and then I definitely want some that sort of colour. I'll probably change that a little bit with a little bit more white. So I have thought about this, these colours that I'm going to be using. There you see, look, that's just doled it down a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to also make some greys, and then I'm going to get cracking. So that's what's going on over to my right. I'm just sort of going to be using some burnt sienna, some ultramarine blue to make some grey, and then put some splashes of this periwinkle because I do have a subject in mind. And I'm not actually going to do that today. I'm just really getting the paint on because we are just talking about first page nerves, really. So I think it is wise to think about your palette a little bit, but you don't have to. Colour theory, some people know colour theory, some people don't. Some people have these sort of things, make my own. When I talk about colour theory, you can get apps for this now, and I do actually use an app as well. Primaries, secondary colours, and then the tertiary colours. You have complementary colours that are opposite. So blue and orange will be complementary. Red and greens will be complementary. So anything opposite on the spectrum are called complementary. But then you have things like split complementary, analog, I can't say it, analogous, which is next to each other. You have triadic, which is a sort of a three, um, three versions. So the red and the yellow green and the sort of bluey green. So there's all different variations of these type of palettes, all called these different things. But really, it's what works for you and what you want to see on your page. So I think it's a good idea to have something in mind. And I didn't have anything in mind until yesterday, like I was saying. So that's what's going on over onto the right, and then I will progress this. So one thing I've learned from having a tutorial with a lady called Sophia was some about composition. I know a little bit about composition, but I don't know loads about composition. But obviously, my style, if you call it a style, is it tends to be when you see my gallery, I tend to have lines, and then sometimes I go loose, sometimes I go a little bit tighter. But I do quite like this method where you put in some, abstract shapes, and then I will draw on top of that once it's dry. That's what I'm going to do. So it's very warm in here, so this will just open the window. This will dry quite quickly. And see, the thing about composition, what I'm going to try and do with this sort of landscape A3 spread across the crease, I'm going to try and do some sort of S zigzag to sort of draw the eye in to these areas. And I'm going to have some random abstract shapes that will be sort of neutrals, basically, the colour that I talked about, the greys. And so the good thing about this, it can help get rid of the nerves because you're not really, you're not really you're not really doing anything. You're just sort of making a bit of a mess. So you can see I'm putting quite a lot of water on. I've sort of got a large sort of blob of water here, and then a sort of a medium blob of water here, and then a smaller sort of blob at the top in a sort of a zigzag pattern. So I'm going at this from this type of angle, and what I want to have some nice sort of watercolor just bleeding into the water, into that water that I've put on. So let's get some greys. I'm going to use that periwinkle. I'll call it periwinkle. It's not actually. Um, and what you will see is you will see some of the split of the colours. So it's good having a mix because the colours separate a little bit. So what I want to try and do is get, and if I get any hard edges, I'm just going to soften it down with a bit of water. And bearing in mind, this is the first time I've used this paper, so I don't know how this is going to react. I'm hoping it can take a lot of water, but it's not actually, it's still a notebook after all. It's a 200-gram paper. I've got a great big puddle there that I'm just going to take some of that off. Dry this down a little bit. I'm doing this one-handed because I'm in a sling. And I do have a subject in mind, but I'm not actually using it. I haven't got any prompts on screen. I'm just literally putting some of the ideas that I have for the color palette. I'm putting them down, and what you'll see, because this gets quite messy, there is no I don't think you get that precious with the first pages when you do it like this. But it's only one way. It's only one way of doing this. And if you had a sort of subject in mind, um, you could do it a little bit differently. I'm just going to get some burnt sienna, and that will blend into the water. And back to some of that. I made a bit of a mess of this palette. I'm going to just mix some more up in this because I do like. So the thing about this is not to worry too much about what's going on because all this you can change. You can mask stuff off, and it is still going to be a sketchbook. It's not a piece of fine art after all. And if I get some hard edges like I probably will down here, I'm just going to soften them up. And I'm just going to put a bit of burnt sienna up here. So I've sort of got a mixture of the grey, and then I've got some of this, let's call it soft blue, and some splatter and some burnt sienna, which is what I wanted. It'll probably dry quite light, so I could probably darken this a lot more, some of this a lot more. Just going to make something a bit deeper with the grey. Paper's still wet, so that's okay. I'm and if when this dries, it doesn't actually fill. I'll show you the subject I'm thinking of if I can, or I'll post it as a note. I'm just softening some of these edges here with some water. Don't like any of these splatters, you can always try and take them out with water and dab them out, but I don't mind that. So I'm not going to do much more on that, just to get rid of some of these hard edges. And just get rid of some of these splatters a little bit further at the top here. Okay, so hi Matthew, Start Bay Notebooks. Hello, thanks for joining everyone. Any questions? I'm just looking at the phone. I will try and find where the stream goes next time so I can look at it on my Mac. So yes, I can't actually show you this. Let me just find them on Instagram. So the subject I had in mind uh, was a food gap. Called, let's just find them. Where are they? Kelp Caravan. I'll get any questions? No. Sorry, not Kelp Caravan, Kelp Canteen. Kelp Canteen. Ah, yeah, so here's a picture. Let me just spin this around. It's not the right picture. So you're there, you see this type of blue. It's a video. Let me just there. Okay, so I was there out in Falmouth yesterday, and it sort of inspired me to sketch that and possibly do that on this spread here. So that's inspiration. If it doesn't quite work out, then it doesn't matter. I'll find something else to do. A3 is quite a lot of page to fill in, so that's dry, and that's all this stream's going to be. But I'll just go back to the beginning a little bit, just to show you some different ways that I've done this in the past. So that one is, I can officially say I've christened my Hanamule Nostalgia, which I'm pleased about, and I'll let that dry. And some of the others that I just mentioned at the beginning. So another way I found, if you're worried about starting something, I've recently been, where is it? So I've recently been putting just something on the first page and then just putting the title of my Substack on. So that one was quite all. I just did some stripes. I think these were some new pencils that I found that I just tried out and end up just putting Capture Your World in the sketchbook on it. So that's one. That's my current one that I'm working on. And then there's another one that I have going. This one, this little one. Now, this one, I didn't have any idea, so I just messed around with some colour, two colours, and some effects where blobbing some water in and getting these blooms, and then again just put my Substack on the top of it. So that's quite a good way of starting your sketchbooks. This one is sort of, yeah, halfway. I'm halfway through that one. I took this one to the Lake District. Hi, Pip. I'm afraid you've missed the christening. So this one came to the Lake District with me. Previously, like this one, I didn't cast that as the first page. I went full guns a blazing, a bit like I did with that larger one on this one, and put lots of. I did have an image in mind, but I put way too much water on this, and it all just went a bit awry. But I quite like it, and it's a good way. This was just thin paper, and then I was saying this one. Really, I had a sort of plan for this one, because this one I was going to do a lot of black and white stuff, pen work. So I went straight in on the first page with a place in Truro, a little cafe in Truro. That wasn't quite the same feeling. But if ever you get stuck or worried about starting that first page, you know, think about putting your name in a splodge. Think about doing this either with a subject in mind or without a subject in mind, because even if something doesn't work on there, I could just put some bold writing right across that, Capture Your World in a sketchbook, my name, if found, return to, Carl Jackaman. Yeah, you read a lot of this about people getting stuck with that blank page fear. Yeah, so that's that. So really, I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to decide on whether to transfer at Kelp Canteen, because I've actually started it in here. I've started it in a much smaller book, and I will finish it in this one. So there it is. There it is there in a sort of A5 spread, but you can see the difference, with the size of the page. And I think it might look quite nice if if I get that image in here as well. And then I will bring in more of the colour, this sort of periwinkle colour. And that's why this doesn't become that important, because it is just like neutral. Some of this will get darker, some of it will have different colours on. So it becomes not as important as you think it is when you first make them marks on the page. Because if I'm transferring this onto here, I'm going to have this come in. This come in here, this come in, the roof is going to sort of come up here. We have a bit of the harbour over here in this white space. Yeah, so I think it'll work fine. Right, okay, I hope you enjoyed that. That's it. It's quite a short one. It's very warm. Let me switch camera. Very warm. Thank you for joining. Thanks for joining, everyone. I can see I'm in my small sort of studio space. I do appreciate people commenting and sharing my Substack. It really helped. I am trying to grow it. It's a little bit slow. I just enjoy putting this stuff out there and hope people get some benefit from it. I've just started a new series about, I'm calling it Focus On. You can find that on the content page. And I'm going to sort of not send them as emails regularly. They'll be just available on my page if you follow the links. But it helps me to get writing a bit more and, doing some more art. Like I was using the Faber-Castell pencils this morning. So it'll help me, I've got plenty of books and sketchbooks to use, and I've got plenty of materials, and I find that sometimes I'm just stuck thinking what to do. So hopefully the writing and using this stuff will get me using it all a little bit more. Yeah. So thanks again. See you soon.